escapades. It's not a book written in the how-to format, because I think there's plenty of books out there. There's plenty of authors that write better than me, who are more well known than me. Have books like that. My book, it takes a different approach, because when I felt the Lord getting me ready to get it published, I realized that the idea of evangelism, sometimes it's misunderstood. Most Christians, I think, look at evangelism as a one-sided coin. But my book takes evangelism and addresses it as a two-sided coin. Because in reality, it's not just about what God is doing to the person you're trying to reach for Christ. Okay, it's what God is doing in you as well. So not only is it in God doing in the lost person, but He's also doing in the person sowing the seed into the lost person's life as well. Right. And my book is about how God has used evangelism in my life to bring more joy in my life, my Christian walk, than I've ever had before. And evangelism also has increased and enriched my prayer life, because when you start seeing people for what they are, which are souls in need of Christ, souls that are going to live forever somewhere, either heaven or in hell. You start looking at souls like that, it drives you to pray more and deeper for them, because when you're involved with people day to day on the streets, meeting people where they are, talking about where they, what their status with God is, it gets a burden for souls the way that Jesus had a burden for souls. I mean, remember in John 4, he tells the disciples, "I must needs go to Samaria." And basically he's saying, I've got to go to Samaria. I have to talk to this woman at the well. It's imperative that I go. Jesus had a burden to not just wait until the next day to find someone to witness to, but he took the opportunities as he had them. And that's the way of the master that we need to follow. So my book is to encourage Christians to get out there and have their own evangelism adventure, because everybody's going to meet different people in their life. Nobody's going to meet, most Christians don't meet the same lost person than the other Christians. But we're all going to have an adventure when we step out in faith and we trust that God's going to bring the increase when we're faithful to sow the seed, when we're faithful to water. And so my book is, it takes so many different personal soul-winning experiences that I've had in many different places, in planes, in other countries, in subway stations, at bus stops, restaurants, just different locations, talking to different people of all types of faiths. I've talked to Catholic, Muslims, atheists, all types of different people in this book. And how did I interact with them? What type of questions did they ask me? How did I answer them? That's all in here to give people like a shoulder's eye view to look over my shoulder to see how did Jay interact with people. How did he get on the topic of Christ? Because many people find that difficult to do. How do you start a conversation about the things of heaven and hell and Christ and eternity? Well, my book gives some examples on how to do that, and you'll enjoy doing it when you step out yourself. And my book also includes plenty of different quotes from giants of the faith, such as Charles Spurgeon, C.T. Studd, D.L. Moody, and just quotes that encourage you to look at evangelism as an adventure to be enjoyed, not a duty to be dreaded.
I also say that evangelism also strengthens your faith even more, because when you see people come into Christ, it strengthens you even more, and it gets you out there to do even more, because now your faith is even that much more strengthened.
Absolutely. And the soul winner, the evangelist, the average Christian that goes out and steps out in faith and looks for lost people to engage with, you never know that you're going to be the answer to someone's prayer unless you step out. Because in my book, I tell experiences that people, I've been answers to people's prayers, you know. And I was sitting on the plane with a guy, struck up a conversation with them, and then he's just like pouring up, like, you know, like, whoa, where have you, like, wow, I'm happy to meet you because I was waiting for someone to you know, talk to something. And so it's just amazing what God does.
Oh, I know. Quick example: there was my worship leader, Tom Ray, at my last church, was at a church that he was ministering with as a worship leader before this church, and he said to the pastor, he goes, Pastor, he goes, God tells you to do backflips on stage, and the pastor looked at him like he was crazy. He says, yeah, he told me to. He says, you sit down. If God tells you to do it again, then you come back to me. About 10 minutes later, he says, God said do backflips on stage. So the pastor stopped the whole service, and my buddy Tom did backflips on stage. He didn't know how to do them, but he listened to God and did backflips on stage. About not even a minute later, guy was in the balcony crying his eyes out, and the pastor goes, are you okay? He goes, I told God today if somebody did not do backflips on stage, I'd kill myself. So it goes to show that God has his way in things, and like you were saying earlier, and how God does things and uses people in mighty ways that you may never expect just by witnessing alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty, I've met people on the streets of Boston that were encouraged because, you know, I listened to the Holy Spirit and went out there and obeyed, you know, the call to, you know, obey the Great Commission. And so it was just amazing how many different Christians you can find out there who are, you know, encouraged by us and other Christians. So, you know, the Great Commission is the great adventure of Christianity. That's from Ron Luce. That's one of the quotes in my book, and it is true. So, and my book is an easy read, and it's not a long read. It's under 100 pages, so you know, it's been highly recommended on Amazon.com from people that I don't even know. So it's been a blessing to see that.
What do I got next? You already answered my next question, which would have been how. Where am I at now? I'm losing my train of thought. Which would have been, how will your book inspire my listeners to do more for God? You've already answered that question, so we can totally skip that one. But what has God brought you through up to now to bring you to where you are now in Him?
Oh, okay, good. So that's gonna get back to the middle part of my testimony of my story. Because we talked about how I got saved, and we talked about how I got the book published, and why I got the book published. But I'll fill in the details. I'll fill in the gap. So after I got saved, I came home. You know, that third day came home. I was all excited, so I wanted to, you know, keep growing in my faith. I wanted to learn more about Jesus. I wanted to start reading the Bible, and my mom wasn't. She was excited that that happened to me, but she still kept us in the Catholic Church for a little while longer until the assistant pastor and his son became my friend, and they lived in the area too, so they started visiting us, check up on us to make sure everything was okay, and if we needed anything, and it was good because I didn't have a dad in the home, and so my mom liked the fact that there was that the assistant pastor taking an interest in me, and his son also was befriending me, and so that was good. And so she became friends with him as well, his wife, and they would minister to her when they would visit in the area, like every 2 weeks, and eventually she realized that there was a difference between what the Baptist church that hosted that neighborhood Bible time program was teaching and what the Catholic Church was teaching, and she realized that what she needed was Bible teaching. She needed a Bible teaching church, and so she was smoking at the time. It was bothering me because I would allergic to cigarette smoking. So I would tell her, Mom, I'll pray for you. Jesus doesn't want you to do that to your body. And then she would take her cigarette smoking outside, so it wouldn't bother me in the house. But then when she would come back in, she'd still smell like smoke, and I'd tag on her about her smelling like smoke too. And so, but the assistant pastor witnessed to her, shared the scriptures with her, and she ended up giving her life to Christ, surrendering to Christ, and the Holy Spirit gave her the power to smoke. And I was happy about that, because now I have to deal with it. Then, shortly after that, she decided to take us out of the Catholic Church, start going to that Baptist church. We were going to be taught back. And so, the reason why I was living with her instead of my biological mom and dad is because my biological mom and dad, I was raised in a broken home, and so my parents were not really together, and they battled drug abuse. Also, like, they were struggling with, homelessness and stuff. My dad had enough sense to tell his sister, my biological aunt, Barbara, who I refer to as my mom. He told his sister Barbara that, look, you have to take Jay, you have to raise Jay, because if you don't, I'm not fit to raise him, and his mother, Gloria, is not fit to raise him. He's going to end up in the state, end up in some strange home. I don't want that for my son. Please consider raising him. And she didn't have any kids of her own, so she decided, this is an answer to my prayer, because I've wanted children and I haven't been able to have them. And now Jay and his sister Tracy can come into my home. I can raise them as my own children. So she appreciated it. And so I moved in with her, probably when I was like 6 or 2 years before I got saved. And then a year later, in 1989, my dad was murdered on the streets of Dorchester. And to this day, we don't know who did it. We don't know who was responsible. And that didn't affect me at that age, because I was kind of too young, and I really didn't have much interaction with him. I would see him occasionally, but not very frequently. So I didn't really have a connection with him. I probably had more connection with my biological mother, even though I lived with her. But so when my dad died, it hurt my mom, his sister, more than it hurt me. But 4 years later, in 1993, my biological mother, Gloria, she died of AIDS. And her death reminded me that my dad was no longer there. That my dad wasn't in the picture either, and that still to this day we didn't know what happened and killed him and why. So when I got the news that my mom died, I didn't take it very well. From then on, I started to get angry at God, started to get bitter, because I was asking him, why does this happen to me? Like, I'm not saved, I've been growing, and now, why is it that I don't have both parents and a good home, like my other friends have? And I started to get angry, and eventually I drifted from the Lord for a lot of years, because I had this pain in my soul about this happening to me, and I just didn't know why. I was very angry, and of course, I wasn't in a Christian school, and I didn't have many Christian friends as well. So I had a recipe for disaster brewing in my soul. I met the wrong crowd as it is. I was becoming a teenager. I was up at girls and wanted to date, stuff like that, and get into sports. And the idea of living for Jesus didn't seem too appealing anymore, especially when I was mad at God at this point. So I just drifted from the Lord for a lot of years, and almost died several times. In prison several times, which I avoided because of God's grace, but they were close calls. And I just made a lot of bad decisions. And basically, in